Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Tenneson Woolf. I'm here with Jerry and Kathy and Janet. This is a Shades of Life conversation, which I think just means that we keep exploring each other's lives. We tell a few stories,
Mm.
we follow some prompts and principles from there. We try to be curious together, and we try to, and we just welcome honesty together, something like that. So, ongoing conversations. Hello, dear friends, all around. I'm going to start us today with recent experience. I just want to find it here in my body. I just got back from a men's retreat,
Mm.
and it is hosted and led by two people that I've met that live here in Utah in Salt Lake City, Marshall and Lucas, who are both mid to late 30s men. So, in one sense, I feel like they are younger men, and another sense, I feel like they've cooked a few things in their lives also. These are unique men. They're both incredible athletes. You may remember that in the summer of last year, I also did a bike trip with these guys,
Mm.
and a demanding bike trip. This was a demanding hike. So down into central slash southern Utah, we went. There were 11 of us. It's the San Raphael Swell, which means that it's like this really unique and protected geography that geographically over time has turned on its side.
Oh,
Plate tectonics and things like that
wow.
have, taken a vertical and made it a horizontal. So really cool images that are there. And if you were geologically smarter than I am, you'd be able to probably say a few things about that. And it's a desert. This used to be historically a sea, an inland sea. And so you get rock formations that show water lines, of over the years coming down, I guess it would be, because now it's a dry desert.
Mm.
There's 11 men. I hold this with some real sacredness in me and some gratitude. So uh, I, I, I appreciate the witness actually to come out of such an adventure that way. 11 men, tents, couple cowboy campers, meaning just, sleeping out with a sleeping bag.
Mm.
The first day of it is, well, excuse me, the first day is a fire and a circle and an invitation to bring something you want to burn, something you want that
Yeah.
symbolizes what you want to sacrifice. So just yay, like they're invoking some ceremonial right from the get go, right? And I love it. I love it that humans are doing this. I love it that men are doing this.
Mm.
And I love it that there's, quote, a younger generation of men that are doing this. So I feel like I'm a kind of support, a kind of participant, a cheerleader, a grateful recipient. Like it's good to be held with deliberateness in an adventure such as that. There was one other old dude, Jerry, approaching your age, 75 was this guy,
Mm.
Bob is his name. And then me, and then really a bunch that are in their even young 20s up to mid 30s. It's held as a what's the word I'm looking for here? A rite of passage or an initiation. That's the word I'm looking for. Meaning there is some deliberateness of a departure, an ordeal, and a return. And the departure is getting out away from modernity. It's cell phones, there's no range there. We're camping and cooking over the stove. They have the gear for it. And none of it's fancy, by the way. I kind of like that. Like it's old gear. There's no schwanky, stuff that's here. So let's see, what's the point here that I wanted
Oh,
to?
so how many days, Tennyson?
4 days. So
Four
arrive on a
days.
Wednesday, do the fire ceremony. The next day is a holy fuck big hike.
Hmm.
that I don't know how far it was, but it's into a slot canyon, up and over ridges, some real climbing that was involved, and definitely a lot of slow and steady as she goes kind of stuff.
Wow.
It took probably 7 hours for that hike. My body was tired. My butt was sore. I got the good advice from some others that says take your poles because I'm sort of like pole 50-50 on the poles thing. And that turned out to be a really good thing to have those poles, especially when trying to be a goat, coming down hills
Mm,
over rocks to be able to distribute weight a little bit with four limbs, not just two. Man, that was good stuff.
mm.
I'm making sense of this kind of stuff right now. So let me maybe cut to the chase of a really highly appreciated thing. Getting to be unplugged was delicious. And that's kind of how they theme it too. Get away. They're really smart in this kind of messaging, and they're really honest in it. They are people who, not only through this program, but some others that happen in Salt Lake, they're really encouraging people to get out on your bikes, to move, to be in community too. Like they're really, really strong that way. Like it's just delicious to see. I think these young men have really good instincts. Unplugged, though, which is to say, get away from all of those devices and notice how you feel and notice how you change. And for me, I'm a person that doesn't want to know what time it is when I'm out in that kind of thing. It's rare that I would look if I still had some juice on my phone, because I had my phone mostly for a camera.
Mm.
But I didn't want to know what time it is. And boy, I think there is a bunch of medicine in being timeless. Or
Mm.
maybe that is to say, there is a bunch of medicine in interrupting the very timeful lives that we live. So I love being able to have that. And I think mostly I anticipated this and it happened. I wanted to feel my body, my being, my psyche connected to a space of nothingness, might be one way of putting it. Far less timed would be another way of putting it. Like I just wanted to feel a rhythm. I wanted to feel an interruption to all of those great things that are part of so many of us in our modern lives and just return to a timeless state and to be held in that. Because these two men, there's three, I guess, that were really on their team, are really holding that for us. And I think they have good instincts on how to do all of that. So I worked my butt off. Part of the ordeal is the big long hike. I also experienced a real kicking in of fear of heights that showed up because I've already got that, and something about walking on a ridge way up with cliffs down to the side, even though it's not like, it's not a tiny ledge. It was a very safe 12-foot wide-ish ledge, but feeling the edges of that, holy hell, did it ever kick in. And in a way that I couldn't just quite shake. Like I actually needed to get off of that and, go down. There was a point where the group kind of split because there's some real athletic, climber, young bodies that are part of that, and they're just ready to go. That group of five or six went on, and then there's a group of four or five of us that decided, oh no, let's go down into the wash and follow it back home. All still like a really demanding, really involved and physically requiring course to be on. I just felt great to be in it. I could blather a bit, but I imagine, and I already have actually, but you folks might have some questions or some ways of relating to that, and maybe I'll come back to it. But the short summary of it, I think, is well, I'll say it this way because this is what I said to the men also, and granted, this is a men's trip, right? I think men have medicine for each other.
Mm.
That was one, and also it's something that I generally only speak in those men's groups, but without it being some sort of macho adolescent fuckery. I said, I want to celebrate the shit out of being a man.
Mm.
And I want to feel that environment with these, So, what is the context that we create where we can celebrate our masculinity, love the bejeebers out of each other? There's plenty of masculinity there, but there was so much love also, like a gentle, tender love amongst these men. That's a cool thing to experience. And maybe that's enough for a start. Hi, thanks for inviting some of that.
Jerry, did you have somewhere you want to go with that?
Um, so I've been a few times where I've experienced something similar, not identical, but similar. One was a John Milton retreat. Did that in Mexico. That was 7 days, 6 nights alone, not talking to anybody, no books, no music, no anything, no fires. There was time in the Wilmore Wilderness up in northern Alberta, where although there was only two people, there we had a cabin, my ex and I, but there was no electricity, and all the cooking that took place on a wood burning stove, and so when it was dark, it was dark, unless the generator got the owner ran the generator, but a lot of mountain hiking. And then we did another sort of quasi Milton style retreat during Meadowlark, where went into the Black Hills, and we're all quiet with our tents. What food and water we carried in, just like we did in Mexico. But the notion of what was kind of resonating for me a bit, Tenneson, is the notion of stillness.
Yeah.
Of finding stillness within yourself, and how really important that is. And it's really a muscle that needs to be worked, I think, on a regular basis. It's it's the keto, I come back to center more quickly kind of stuff. If you don't practice that, work that muscle of finding stillness, even the commotion of today makes it even so much harder if we don't work at it. I find, like, Kathy and I we go for walks around the lake when she's here, and we might go for an hour-long walk and hardly talk at all, because it just the walking and being sort of in nature, urban nature, but in nature, it brings a level of stillness, of internal quiet that I like. And yeah, so that doesn't address the masculinity part of the conversation, which I have one other thought just to share about it. But I like this notion, and it makes me think about how can I do that, like even in a small way for my family, opportunities to find quiet and stillness within oneself. I don't know, but I think it's increasingly more important. Because if you know what that looks like, then you can go there. But if you don't know what it looks like, it's that I go back to center kind of thing. If you don't know what that looks like, centering for yourself, how do you go there? That's the practice, the muscle, the work kind of thing. So that was one sort of.
If you don't know it, like I think this is true for this group of men, and I'm also trying to speak more broadly.
Yeah.
If you don't know that place or the value of that place of stillness, or have the hunch towards it, you end up feeling a bit ashamed to go there. Like you shouldn't go there. What a crazy pattern that is, and a good one to interrupt. Whoa.
Right, right. Yeah, this need to always be
Go,
some
go, go,
busy.
go, go. Be do, be
Right,
do, be do.
right, right. The other, just sort of related to the masculinity piece a little bit, not a lot. Uh, I was watching, and I mentioned this to Kathy yesterday when we were walking, just towards the end, that I was watching an interview with the Senate candidate in Texas, Telarico, who's driving the Republicans crazy. And he was asked a question about the war and um, I think response to that bombing of the school.
Hmm.
And he said, I need to quote, and I don't know the location of the passage in the Bible, but the quote was, "Blessed are those who can weep."
Hmm.
Mhm.
And it just sort of knocked me back in my chair, just that phrase, because we might think of weeping as a weakness in some ways, but you know, it's it's a it's maybe more strength that you have empathy, that you can feel something that deeply, regardless of whatever gender identity you may have,
Hmm.
that you can weep, um, and just how important that is to feel that internally, that
Hmm.
without shame, without judgment, without, yeah. So that I'm complete for now.
Thank you.
Janet, you want to pick up on that? Lost in thought there, I see.
Sure can. Struck by two things from this foundation of where we started. I really like men. Um,
And you wrote
for as
about them
long
recently.
yes, for as long as I can remember, if there's a family gathering, I don't want to be in the kitchen with the women talking about children. I want to be in the living room with the men talking about ideas.
Hmm.
And it was true when I was a landlord. The 20 something females drove me insane because they were all drama. Just give me a boy who's going to say, "This is how it is. I screwed up. I spent my money. This is how much I have." Okay, I can work with that. So it's the directness of
Hmm.
male communication that I so appreciate.
Hmm.
And it's weird because for the past 40 years, 30 years, I've mostly done work with women in groups.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, now I see the advantages. I also am so excited by your description, Tennyson. It's like the beginning. I know we had Robert Bly and all that, but I feel like this is a beginning among young men
Hmm.
that parallels the women's movement.
Hmm.
And it's being defined by men themselves.
Hmm.
Um, and it's inside out, upside down of what the dominant paradigm is.
Hmm.
And it is so necessary. But it's not going to be formed by outside opinions and beliefs. It's going to be formed by men coming together
Hmm.
and working it out together. So I think that for me is the key of what I'm hearing is shifting. It's not power and dominion.
Hmm.
It's let's go explore and put aside the roles, the machines, the busy. Let's just be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, we're definitely in a moment of redefinition. New moon in Libra tomorrow, April 1st, or full moon, which, as I often reference astrological things, there's like some big movements happening in the skies right now, and it's influencing what's happening here on Earth, what we pay attention to, how deeply we hold on to outdated beliefs or structures, or our willingness to let new things come in. And I think that's kind of in this theme of, is there a new level of masculine consciousness that's rising? And I use the word masculine intentionally, since we all embody both masculine and feminine attributes. So there's kind of that. Tenneson, when you talked about bringing your poles along for support, I just thought I went to this place really of support. And interesting that you use the word shame around stillness, because I think that that applies also possibly to allowing ourselves to be supported, or asking for support, or bringing along the things that that do support us, and how it's not a lessening of us, it's an enabling of the things that we might want to do, like walk on those paths. Where I hear you about the edges. A couple of years ago, I was out in British Columbia visiting my sister, and she walks daily with a group of people, and one of those walks was up a very, very steep, I won't say mountain, although it felt like it to me, but like a very steep hillside. Like, my sister's trying to kill me. She doesn't even know like how difficult those heights are, and how you do it. But we find a way, right? It's like we're halfway up, and she's like, "Do you want to go back?" And I'm like, "No," because like we're halfway there. Going down is going to be probably more challenging than going forward. Um, so I'm going to go forward with that. So I think like part of what I heard and what you're saying is this invitation to ask for what we need, offer what we can, and then not be ashamed that that's what we need, in this moment for whatever reason that we need it. And then between, what you were saying and what Jerry's saying about being unplugged in the stillness, and there's no question in my mind in this moment, like we really need within ourselves to foster those places of stillness, and invite them as much as we can with other people. And sometimes that's providing space, and sometimes it's, I don't know what it looks like. It's taking my grandkids to the local playground so they can just be outside in nature, which they love. And it almost doesn't matter to them what the temperature is. So there's ways of support. Running around doesn't exactly sound like stillness, but I'm sure that being outside of the TV or the videos or the, other things, I think that that is in some way. It's an invitation into being in nature, which is sustaining for like so many of us. So, and then Janet, I think I'm kind of like, I equally love talking to the women about kids and grandkids, or the men about kids and grandkids, as I do love talking about ideas. And some of it just depends on, where I'm at in my own being, and what catches my attention at any given time. So I think like support, unplugged, love that you said it was delicious. I, always have my gadgets around, and I take my phone on walks, mostly out of habit, and then also for pictures and things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm less and less on social media, and more on other things that feed my soul. So I'll stop there.
This is stirring things in a good way, and I think a helpful way. So can I go just a little bit
Yeah, please.
further?
Yeah, go.
Like, let's go down to another layer of this cake.
Mm.
Um, and as is often true for me, I just need to collage it a little bit. Stillness as a, and we all have some pretty great language about inviting stillness and why it matters and everything. So yay, good, cool. I'm just gonna like say cheers to that and park it over here. There's something to relearn in the body. So I know that in me, and I know it enough to want to see that and want to taste that out in a desert, you know.
Mm.
Earlier today, so now let me make a connection. We've got a cat, as you know, Marmalade. Marmalade loves to sort of flop on the floor and, you know, lay there, dead cat, or lay there, paws up, playful cat, but flops on the floor. And Dana, sweetheart Dana, who's on her way to work and what has just been a freaking full, busy 6 months worth of her job, corporate life, etc. And she says passingly, jokingly, she says, I want to be like the cat for a day. And, you know, she's sort of just like throwing it out there and like, well, if only kind of thing. And I pick up on it and say, well, wait a minute. What would happen if you did a cat day? What if we did a cat day, you know? And Dana laughs, you know, she's like, oh yeah, I could just lay there or whatever. And she drops into this sort of laziness narrative. But I'm actually being quite serious about it. What would happen if you/we gave ourselves permission for a cat day? Not every day is going to be a cat day, but what would happen if there were nothing on the plate and nothing on the agenda? Now, my guess is we and Dana would just really learn some important things about ourselves. And I bet the time of that day would feel very, very, very big. You know, whoa. Even 2 hours of that would feel big. So there's something about the cat day part of it. I'm going back to this Lucas and Marshall. It's just an interesting part of the story, and then I'll tie it to a question. They are childhood friends. They grew up down the street from one another in, I think it was Missoula, Montana. And, you know, they've stayed in friendship. One of them went to college and is a teacher by profession, but it's kind of a part-time gig. And the other is, you know, trying to figure out what to do. And that includes some of this. They don't seem to hold this space because they'll do 6-ish of these kind of trips during a year. Like they don't really, I don't know what's true here. I think it's all true. They're kind of trying to market it like, what if this were to grow bigger? What if we could get some corporate groups? All of those kind of regular questions. But they're also just trying to hold on to it as this is a way of being. Like, what are you marketing? We're marketing a way of being. Now, an older fart like me can say things like that. And for them as younger men, I think they're really struggling with like how to say that. Their instincts are so cool. And, you know, they got all kinds of wobble about, is this a marketable thing? And not even wanting to hold it just in that language, you know, this is a product we can sell. It's like I can see them trying something different there. The other thing, well, two things, I guess. One is blessed are those who can weep, whatever that reference is there. It's a pretty, I don't know what word to use. It's a pretty cool thing to see men cry. And I have to go a little further with that in a way that I feel like I'm learning. Like, because there were some tears. I think it's men who could trust the tears a bit too. Not a fix, just a witness and a natural thing. There's something about that feels important. And I'll context that also because there were tears in other places, but it was also the details are not my story to tell, but the general is okay, I think. There was one man there, the older man, that had lost a son. The son died when he was 33, kind of freakish health circumstance, died unexpectedly and instantly. And so he came in part to honor his son, who was friends with the people that organized this trip. But
Wow.
he brought ashes. And so, of course, we created just a little ceremony, a few of us, and he invited me into that. So it's like, oh, say a few words and spread some of those ashes of his 33-year-old son into the fire that we had occupied for a couple of days. So tender things, real things. The beauty of creating a kind of ceremony, to get a ceremonial presence together. Because is this true? I don't know if this is true or not. The part that I wrestle with is it feels like maybe it's different context. Men sort of brush some of those things off, and yet in this context of we're in a desert and we're out on a men's retreat, it felt so beautifully natural. Of course, to honor this man and his deceased son with a little bit of ashes spreading. Let me shift that. It's connected also, but just shift to another thing, because I was being a bit clunky. This is that part of me that is trying to live consciously into my own age and name some of the difference, even though the age isn't a hard boundary, right? I'm in that kind of category questions, as you know. And in this context with these young men, well, really the one, Marshall, who I am closest to, I fumbled with the question, and then I realized what I was trying to ask, and I said, so is there something you feel that your generation needs from my generation? And Marshall's a thoughtful dude, and he said what I thought he would say initially. He said, yeah, we need your stories. And so good, yeah. And then he kind of joked, like it's like he was brushing it off a little bit. And then he said, and we need money, like give us a house. And that was the laughter moment, like, well, yeah, of course, that kind of thing. I think there's something to hold on to in that. Now, it's not, maybe it is about the money. Like, to me, there's something that he's saying that I think is carried across maybe a certain category of younger men. And maybe the story goes something like this. The world's kind of crazy. We don't know how to interpret the world. And the story before us, which includes boomers, I think I'm a late boomer. I always sort of misunderstand that categorizing a bit. But, the boomer category was like, yeah, get an education if you can, get a job, get a house, get the kids, all of that. There's a lot of getting that was going on. And I have this sense that even in the playfulness of that response from Marshall, that younger men are in some giant what the fuck kind of question. What is this world? How are we supposed to be in this world? And some of that old story works, but I think there's some of that old story that is an old story and it doesn't work anymore. I feel for him, and I'm genuine about the question. Like, what is it that my generation can give, or how is it that my generation can be in relationship with that generation in an honest way? I really cheer the shit out of these guys. I love it that they're so deep. They're kind. They're skilled as hell, and boy, are they asking some good questions. And they're adolescent as hell sometimes, but there are also, there's a maturity that's in there also. That's my round 2 on the layer of the cake. I really welcome whatever your impressions are.
I'll jump in. Tennyson, somewhere in a bunch of stuff I've saved for years that I ripped out of magazines and I thought they were magnificent, was something Eric Utney wrote about how boomers are needed by the youngers because we survived and we tried to change the system and we did some, but not as much as we wanted. And I keep coming back to that in my relationships with younger people.
Mm.
I have grown grandchildren who are between 20 and 30, and we have very deep conversations. And they're also struggling. And
Mhm.
to me, that they need the wise elder to listen, to offer when there's something to offer, but mostly to listen
Mhm.
because listening validates and gives them space. What if we looked at Marshall's request instead of give us a house? What if it was give us a home?
Mhm.
Mm.
And house is just the representation of what is really being sought.
Mm.
And that's what I think my job is
Good. Yeah.
as an old woman, is to say, welcome home, sit,
Mhm. Mm.
here's some bread. And it doesn't take anything more than that.
Mm.
We think it needs to be something huge. There's another completely unrelated element that's been coming up for me, coming off of Blessed of Those Who Can Weep. I'm finding a return to religion,
Mm.
not personally, because I never really left it. I always felt like it left me. And I've been through many incarnations of religions. That makes people's heads swing when they need to categorize me. And I say, well, Catholic, Quaker, Buddhist, Wiccan, and they don't ask any questions after that because it is beyond their comprehension. But years ago, I was reading stuff from the guys in the UK who did the Dark Mountain Project. And Paul Kingsnorth and Martin Shaw, who I don't know if he was involved in Dark Mountain, but he's taken all the folk tales and bringing them more into the world. They have become part of the Russian Orthodox Church, and that just made my brain explode when I first heard it. I just read something that there is a dramatic increase in conversions within the Catholic Church. That's making my brain explode because where do we have more patriarchy than in the Catholic Church? But I think to me, we've been in a time where science replaced religion and became like the new religion. And so it's like we have to come back to, I'm not calling what we're coming back to. I think we're coming back to a sense of faith in ourselves and in something bigger.
Mm.
And I don't know, even 3 years ago, I would said, these people are whacked. You're not going to find it in church. But I'm like, okay, but we can find it in the woods.
Mm.
We can find it in the moonlight. So why can't we find it in a church? It's just another place. And maybe it's just the space that gathers us.
Mm.
So those are all my randomness.
Mm. Thank you.
Well, I'm kind of maybe head in a slightly different direction in response to Tennyson's question. And my response is maybe what we can give them is a list of things to avoid.
Mm.
So and I'll sort of begin. One of the things to avoid are gender roles.
Mm.
I mean, when on the farm, everybody worked till the work was done. My grandma drove a combine. She drove a grain truck. You know, and she was a postmaster, so she had a job. But when that was done at 3 o'clock, she was out at the farm at harvest time doing farm work. In my cousin's farm, all the men and women worked till chores were done. Um, in my household, my dad and mom, nobody sat till everything was done. That was just, and it didn't matter whether, the dishes had to get done or the vacuum had to get done or whatever it was. Roles, yes, there were certain roles. Clear, my dad mowed the lawn, not my mom, those kinds of things. But work was shared work until it was done without a gender role. And now, I look at my neighborhood and I only see men mowing the lawn, only throughout the whole neighborhood. I've never seen a woman mow the lawn except across the street, Joseph and Becky. They share work. She'll run the snow blower. She'll mow the lawn. That's the only people in the whole neighborhood where I see that happening. Young couple. So part of it is maybe just let go of, I don't know where it happened, somewhere along the line when the soldiers came back from World War II and went back to the factory and kicked the women. I don't know a precise time, but somewhere along the line, gender roles started to firm up. So that's just one thing, is get rid of that. Let's just get back to, it's like Kathy and I built the deck in her backyard. When it comes time to split wood, we split wood together for the fireplace. And it's just, and we work as a team getting that done, with the saws and the powered screwdrivers and everything. And I think if that happened more, relationships could be stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be something that can contribute to stronger relationship. The other thing is while as boomers may have been the love generation and the hippie generation, we became the bowling alone generation in many ways.
Bowling, what did you say, Jerry?
Bowling alone, Robert Putnam's book about how we've just lost social connection. And we're really the generation that sort of, we quit going to the Kiwanis and the Elks. And we just quit being parts of social things, because that was all capitalist, whatever it was, materials. And so, like my dad was a very skilled house builder and carpenter. And he had friends that were electricians and plumbers and concrete workers, and they would all help each other out at different things all of the time. That was not part of my experience. But my son and son-in-law and their good friends, they'll do stuff like that together. They don't need to. It's not a money thing. It's like, well, let's just go change the brakes on our car and do this collectively together, and so it's a bit of avoid this individualistic behavior that seems to have emerged and come back to some forms of coming together stuff. I think the two men from your Marshall and
Lucas.
That there's a beginning of that there in some way, where they've come together to offer something and just sort of, I guess my two things are, what can we offer to avoid this individualistic kind of life approach and come back together in more shared work, less gender defined work. Those are just two thoughts here.
Break the rigidity of the gender roles that they've inherited.
Yeah.
That didn't just start post a world war. They've been inherent in us for centuries. But I think the only thing that I would add to this conversation at this point, kind of coming back to social connection and the witnessing, the listening that you talked about, Tenneson, is I think about my family. So there's some members of my family who are going through a pretty tough time at the moment. And the conversations that I have with my kids are unlike any that ever
Mm.
happened between me and my parents. Like it's just the level of honesty and hurt and pain and just realness
Mm.
that shows up in that space because collectively we've created that space for that to happen through how we talk, how we show up, how we listen. And I think about my oldest grandson who's 7.5 and all of them really, but kids have such a strong sense of what's fair and what's not fair.
Mm.
And adults will often like normalize it out of them because you don't want to admit that a 7-year-old got the better of you because you said, this is, do you want to do this versus this is what I want you to do? Call you out on language. Did you really mean to ask a question or did you really mean that to be a directive? Well, he heard it as a question. He didn't hear it as a directive. So how do I'm like, all right, lesson to self, ask that or say that in a different way next time. If what I really want is the thing that I asked a question about, I just want him to say yes, so. So I think about that, and I think about some of the conversations that we've had with Jerry's grandkids, the younger ones in particular, just about life, living, death, patterns, paranormal, like all of that. And so I think for me, it just really comes back to, and I don't want to take credit for creating those environments other than allowing them and engaging them as opposed to shutting them down. And I feel a real sense of, what's the word? I want to say pride, and I don't even think that's the quite the right word. But the fact that I can have these open, honest conversations with my kids touches me in a really deep, heart-centered space because we can talk about what's real and nobody needs to hide it. That's what I got, as we're probably getting close to checkout time here.
Yeah, I realize that. Let me throw in just a little bit, and then maybe I can move that into some checkout space too. This
Perfect.
is rich for me, and it's probably rich beyond me, but it's particularly localized from this recent experience. So, I do find myself wanting to dwell in what that experience was, and why it's got energy. So this conversation feels like a gift in that way. So I'll just say thank you, Kathy. I know you are social media, and you see things faster than I do on social media world, where you seem to, and so you saw pictures, and thank you for the curiosity. There was something really beautiful about all of that. When I tried to tie this back in, oh, it was Janet, something that you said, welcome home. I do feel like I feel like a cheerleader. I'm such a willing cheerleader with these young / middle-aging men. I find, when we hug and you get to do a little whisper in each other's ear or a quiet sentence, I just say, you guys are doing something great here. And I want them to hear that. I want them to feel some level of encouragement. It is a welcome home, I think, Janet, in the way that you're speaking of it. And maybe the added stretch for that, because I'm not likely to be able to give them a home or a house. But the figurative conception of that, which includes like, here's a little extra money. Yes, I can give you some. Go do good, If they are supported in their own instinct or desire to come home, or to be home or to create home, then I have this belief in me that says life will continue to life them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've got their path, and my job isn't to get them on my path, although sometimes that might be fun. It's actually to get them on their paths, and trusting that, you know, a little support so they can do what they naturally want to do or can't not do. Damn, that feels super healthy. Jerry, I just like the list of the things to avoid
Mm.
and all of the description that you went on that. Like, in this particular adventure, there is some light structure, or there's some deliberateness, which includes some circle. It includes fire. It includes community. People pitch in, and that's how it runs. Even though they planned it out, you know, they know what the meals are, but there's always a dish to be washed and, you know, a coffee pot to be brewed, kind of thing. So all of that, there's community in all of that. And then there were some workshops. I don't like the language workshops. It feels a little foreign out there, you know. But nonetheless, it's like some structured conversation and learning round a fire. One was on values, one was on identity, another was on stuff you're good at, in their parlance, stuff you're nasty at, good, nasty, good, and things you're working on, you know. So just like oodles that's in that. And then, yeah, Kathy, I just picked it up. Like something about have the honest conversation and have the brave conversations. Like we're past the point of being able to dodge those things. I there's something rich in all of that. So that's my appreciation for today. And I've been thinking as we go along, you know, here's old geezers us. That, you know, when we get the recording, maybe I'll listen to it first and then maybe I'll share it with them. You know, here's some old geezers talking about you. It's rich for me to feel it. So I think I'm integrating something that feels really important. And I'm also watching my own tendency, because I can come back home and say, well, time to get back to work, and do that unintentional back to the real world. That's the very thing that I challenge people on. What if the real world were out here? You know, this is as real as anything. All of that, I guess, in a checkout way now is to say thank you. This is rich to me, and it's rich to continue and sort of pull back the feeling and to share it amongst some beloveds and friends here. So thank you.
I'll offer just a couple of quick thoughts. Centered around the stickiness of experiences. And, you know, so in the first part, this gets back to the importance to me of how I chat with my grandchildren and Kathy and I interact, is how much I can vividly recall things that I learned from my grandparents.
Yeah.
I'll find myself doing something one day and it's like, holy shit, this is just like how Grandpa Gordon would do it. You know, so or sometimes it might be my dad. I recall my dad or my mom. So the stickiness of experience. The one thing you may want to share, Tenneson, with your colleagues is those experiences that I described in the beginning, the John Milton retreat, the Meadowlark retreats, happened a long time ago. And yet I can vividly recall elements of them during those times, you know, sitting by myself beside the ocean 4 days into it alone, and just remembering the ocean waves. Like that experience is going to be sticky. And that's part of the gift that they're giving, is not just the immediacy of the experience, but the stickiness of it that will be there over time. Yeah. So I'm complete.
Nice. Mute, 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 mute. I don't mind trying to lip read, but
Sorry, I was trying to. My husband's doing things.
there you go.
I would pose a question to your younger men. They asked, is this marketable? And I've been struggling with the word market. We don't have the language we need yet. I don't have. And I'm a word person, and I don't know what the words are. So we need them to help us figure out. Yeah. All right. I understand. We're hospicing modernity. Got it. Okay. But what's next? Yeah. I follow a guy, I think is in his 40s, Adam Wilson, who writes Peasantry School newsletter. And he's struggling with the same thing. And he inspires me, but he doesn't give me any answers. And I'm struggling for answers, and I find myself struggling with the oddest things. I just agreed to finally, in my head, and did it, to start a Substack with what I've been writing recently. And I resisted it because Substack is designed to help you make money. I don't want anything to help me make money. I just want an avenue to get the words out. But that's so hard to explain to somebody who's still needing to make money. And so it's this in-betweenness that I feel so present to me, and trying to figure out how to language it. So that's what I'm hoping for.
I kind of have two thoughts towards the end of this. One is this whole notion of boomers, because Tenneson, you and I are at the tail end of the boomers, and we're less like the boomers and more like Gen X and kind of a bridge generation based on experiences. But I was really struck when Jerry said about boomers from the love generation to bowling alone. Like, how is that one generation? Seriously, how is that one generation? The experiences are so diverse, and then speak a little bit to what was happening over that long period of time in that generation. So I'm kind of thinking about that a little bit. And then I'm thinking, Tennyson, about life will continue to life them onto their paths. And I love that, because we all know we all have kids and now grandkids. You can't live their journeys for them. You can't point out the pitfalls and the whatever and expect that they're going to avoid them, because that's whatever is in their life path is in their life path. And we just have to kind of be there to provide comforting spaces isn't even the right thing, but provide a place for people to show up where they know they're loved unconditionally and they can share what they need to share. But I think about this a lot in terms of stewarding our children. You know, they don't belong to us as much as we might sometimes like to think they do. But this framing of life will continue to life them. Yes, life will continue to life all of us on our paths, kind of no matter where we are or what age that we're at. And so I like that. I'm gonna leave with that framing, I think. And Janet, when you said about hospicing modernity, yeah, I guess we are. Like, I sometimes think that there are I don't sometimes think this. I think it has to be true that there are always some of us who are in this in-between place, because it's a continuous continuum of experience and journey. And there is no, I mean, we can look to history and go, well, this started here, but while that thing started there were lots of other things in between spaces all around it, and lots of other people in between spaces all around it. And that is true now in this moment as much as it's been true in any other moment in human evolution.
Damn,
That's what I
that's
got.
good. That's good. Drop your mic. The last line that I'll throw in is that stirs out of what you were just saying, Kathy, is that we get to companion. So sometimes
Right.
we do show up and we steer our kids and do all these things. And I'm not talking about these two men as kids. You know, they
Right.
are impressive humans, and companioning is the invitation, and I think is the, you know, the need probably also. So when we fractal out our companioning, called into
Yeah.
whatever spaces, and daring to live even the tiniest levels of life's us. Wow, that was a phrase, by the way, that came from the bike trip that I did with these guys, you know, last summer, and ended up doing a whole thing around it. But life's us was a really good phrase. I love the companioning here. We learn some things, we follow some things, and discover some things. I feel all of that. Thank you for today. Shades of Life. See you next time.